Back. There we go. Okay. I got a fan directly on the fucking laptop. Okay? We got a fan blowing on this bitch. All right? I don't want to hear it. Okay. To conclude my points about what Chris Christie said, it's a gamble for him and it's a gamble for the rest of the people. No, trust me, you don't. Trust me. It's a gamble for him and it's a gamble for Republicans like him. His party is disintegrating in front of him. And this is a Hail Mary. He knows it. He's not going to tell anybody until he's gone. But he knows this party is falling apart. He knows this party is falling apart and being taken over by extremists. So this is a Hail Mary. He wouldn't be saying these things if he wasn't pretty goddamn sure about the state of the party. So I just wanted to use Chris Christie here to point this out, that the mainstream Republicans that still pretend like there's, you know, like Mitch McConnell's party is still alive. They're well aware of what's happening. They're seeing it happen. They know that their party is being taken over by extremists. Okay, that was the point I wanted to make with that video. Moving on. Once again, I'm sorry, mainstream media. I'm sorry, but if we're talking about Trump, we got to do it. This is interesting. Trump's legal team has been shitting all over this law clerk that has apparently, like, so this law clerk is like assist the judge, right? So like the judge is like, oh, look up this thing or go get me this thing or whatever, right? Go do this, go do that. I'm a judge. I'm really important. I don't have time to do the small shit. So the clerk sits there in the court and assists the judge with whatever. Totally normal, 100% normal shit. This is not abnormal in the least. Well, apparently the clerk is like rolling their eyes and like smirking at Trump's lawyers' theatrics. And Trump has been on social media saying that the fucking judge is having a sexual relationship with the clerk and all kinds of shit. Saying the clerk is biased and trying to dox the clerk and all these things, right? Intimidation, a total breach of the gag order. So now the judge has in kind of like, you never see judges get this mad apparently, but he's slamming the fucking desk and he's saying, you know, stop talking about my fucking clerk. We're not here about my clerk. We're not going to turn my law clerk, which is a totally normal thing, into a manufactured circus to help distract you from, you know, your conviction here. By the way, he's already guilty. This is just about the amount of guilt. The guilty, he doesn't even show up for the guilty plea. He only shows up when the money is calculated. It's hilarious. Anyway, so that's the preface to this clip. Let's get into it.
Turning now to a number of important developments from downtown Manhattan late this afternoon in the midst of a crucial stage in that $250 million civil fraud trial targeting the Trump family businesses brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Today, a notably fidgety Eric Trump wrapped up his testimony. He was combative with the AG's office, more so today than yesterday. We'll tell you more about his raised voice testimony.
Leon, I agree. And I have also engaged in, you know, Schadenfreude while watching this. But I'm still on the fence as to whether Trump or these fucking, you know, spawn of his that look like some kind of, you know, fucking comedy satire of nepotism children, you know, some kind of SNL skit. I'm not convinced that these scumbags are going to be going to jail. Even Club Fed, you know, the little, you know, the rich person's jail.
In a second, because breaking in just the last hour, the judge in the case has issued an expanded gag order ruling that Trump's attorneys can no longer make.
Christopher, I'm only going to say this once. The reason why you're finding frustration with political discussion is because you're pretty goddamn naive. You're over here talking about I want a streamer that picks specifically the sides I want to pick. You don't even know the definition of the sides. When you talk about Israel against Palestinians, are you talking about the right-wing Israeli government? And you were talking about against Palestinians, you're talking about the Palestinian citizens, or are you talking about Hamas? You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. So how about you stop going into streams and demanding shit from people and start using these motherfuckers right here. Start listening. You know, it's like you walked into a motherfucking stream, like an AI chat room, and you're like, hey AI, you need to conform to my political beliefs and my biases. Here's a list of my political biases that you need to conform to. I want to watch a streamer without hypocrisy. Yeah, and I want a chat that isn't filled with naive jackasses like you. And luckily, that's exactly what this chat is. That's why naive jackasses like you get the motherfucking boot.
Any public statements in or out of court about communications between the judge, that's Judge Engoron, and his staff. It's an angry crescendo to a tension we told you about as it was brewing yesterday. Donald Trump's team repeatedly insinuating bias on the part of the judge's clerk. It happened again today. Trump's team making dubious accusations, a manufactured sideshow, in the word of the AG's office. During trial today, Judge Engoron had this to say, quote, "This allegation is untrue. It's a shame we have descended to this level," he said, adding, quote, "I don't want any further comments about my staff." Joining us at the table, Sue Craig of the New York Times. Andrew and David are still with us.
Folks, I can't describe the amount of fucked that you would be. You, the citizen, would be, the regular Joe would be, if you pulled this shit. If you pulled this shit. If you're like you know, a hit and run, right? And you're like indicted, or, you know, some massive smuggling, embezzling thing with your company, right? And your ass gets indicted and you get pulled into a big fucking thing, and then, you know, day one on the trial, you start talking shit about the staff, about the judge and the staff that's like trying your case. I can't tell you how fucked you would be. It's shocking. It's shocking that Trump isn't in jail right now. And it's, you know, and it's a clear separation of justice. It's a clear two justice system right now. Welcome back, Lenny from South Boston. Thank you so much for coming back. Lenny is, of course, the #1 financial contributor to the stream, to the News Underground. Thank you, Lenny, for your support. Welcome back.
Sue, we'll deal with the gag order and what is clearly an effort at sort of manufacturing a circus, which the Trumps are, if nothing else, very good at. But let's talk about the legal setbacks that may have made that necessary.
Well, I think this is proven to be, I wouldn't say an effective distraction, but a distraction. And that came on the heels of Eric Trump's testimony, which I would say was pretty rocky. He was on the trial he was on the stand for about a day and a half, and he had various defenses that they just sort of went from bouncing from one to the other, and all of them were. I think everybody in the courtroom, my head was kind of spinning, and it started out. I actually put a list together.
Okay, let's go through it. Yeah.
It's fascinating. According to this, if we're gonna listen to this woman here, look at this. It's called the thief's poem or something. See if I can find this. The thieves poem. Yeah, here we go. It's this I don't know who wrote it, you know, some smart person. See if we can find it here. Maybe this isn't the right one, actually. No. God damn it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically, you know, I didn't do it. And if I did do it, I didn't mean to do it. And if I did mean to do it, then the people that I did it against are evil. And it's this list of excuses that goes down, and I swear to God, he's following it. He's following this poem almost, you know, segment by segment, literally almost segment by segment as his statements are being read out. You know, it's insane.
First one is, I was busy doing other things.
Pouring concrete.
Pouring concrete.
I have this mental image of him like with a juice container, like pouring. Like, what is that? What?
That's, and you know.
Wow. She's like kind of showing her own. She's incredibly wealthy, probably from some wealthy family. That's why she's in this chair right now. When I think of pouring concrete, I think of like pouring juice from a juice container. You don't even know what pouring concrete means. Millionaire journalist at MSNBC. Kind of calling herself out with that one, if you ask me.
Mental image of him like with a juice container, like pouring. Like, what is that? What?
That's, and you know, and they don't have a lot of new construction, so I don't even know what.
Chem Goblin, thank you. That's what it is. Narcissist prayer. Yes. The narcissist prayer. Listen to this. I mean, it's unbelievable how like this matches up with what Trump Jr. is saying over here, or Eric. I think this is we're talking about specifically about Eric Trump, but that didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, well, that's not my fault. And if it was, well, I didn't mean it. And if I did, well, you deserved it. It's fascinating. The people that have, that have figured this stuff out well before our time. These con men. I saw a headline about how apparently it was Thomas Jefferson or someone apparently wrote a letter or an article somewhere perfectly describing Trump to a T. The phenomenon of Trump. Amazing.
What that is, but he's busy out working on properties.
Welcome back, Clutch.
Pouring concrete. He's too important to be worried about, and he specifically said appraisals. So he's too busy doing other things. But then the Attorney General, I thought it was, and it very neatly did this. They took his the depositions that he gave last year, and they played them in court where he was saying he doesn't know a lot about the appraisals and other issues that are going on at the company that affect this case. And then the Attorney General came into court this week and just put on the screen email after email after email. The repetition was very effective in what they did and showed that he was right in the weeds of a number of appraisals that are at the heart of this case. So that was, I thought, really effective.
Wow.
And then the second...
Which ones did they have? Because I've heard of the Seven.
So Seven Springs is the estate out in Westchester. There's been a lot of discussion about it. Donald Trump bought it in the 1990s. He tried unsuccessfully to make it into a golf course and put housing out there. And they have got an easement on that. And what that means is they've just tried to then donate some land in order to get tax breaks from it. So that was one of them. And there was another golf course that came up, but it was clear. And there's just a few properties that the Attorney General's looking at on this, and these were, and so he was saying, no, I didn't have a lot to do with it. And the emails really, I think, credibly sort of shot that down to anybody sitting in the courtroom. At least that was sort of my take on it.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, well, we relied on professionals. We have outside accountants, we have outside lawyers. And so, I'm busy doing things.
Pouring
concrete. So I rely on these guys. And that was interesting until you sort of...
Yeah, exactly. Lenny is 100% correct. The buck stops with the guy. That's why they're signing the paper. Because signing the paper basically says, I've read the document. I approve of the assessment. I approve of the work that my employee did. And, because the company is under my name, or I'm the chief operating officer or whatever, I'm the VP of this department. Okay. So that's why sometimes if you work at a company and a VP gets fired, well, because they weren't doing their due diligence. But here's the thing about Trump and the Trump kids. They were doing this intentionally. They were like, they knew the valuation was not correct. They knew it was overvalued, and they approved it anyway, because it's a scam that the Trump family has been doing for decades, apparently, overvaluing things when they need to sell it or when they need it appraised, but then undervaluing it when they need to pay taxes. It's kind of pretty clear fraud, if you ask me, and like his name is on the documents.
Obviously start to think that through, and we've had accountants and lawyers and everybody come into the...
Wow, opinionated guy really knows his video games, guys. The opinionated guy really didn't just stick his fucking foot in his mouth and make himself into a total jackass, guys. Man, you know, the opinionated guy really nails me to the wall every single time. Didn't even understand the fucking reference and then tries to call me out. How about you sit the fuck down?
Courtroom saying, well, we just relied on the information that the Trumps gave us. So that was their second defense was. And then the third one is, well, it doesn't even, none of this even matters because there's nothing to see here because the financials are not only perfect, they undervalue our father's assets. They're actually worth even more. So they're bigger, they're better, they're bigger, and so nothing to see here. So
how did that go?
I didn't think it. I was like, my head was spinning at times because you're just trying to think, like, what? They were throwing all this stuff out.
One of the problems, as we were talking about before we came on, was Eric started by saying, "I don't even know we had financials." Right. I do know that we had financials because, of course, we had financials, but I don't know anything about them.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. This guy's statements here. This is actually quite fascinating.
Eric started by saying, "I don't even know we had financials." Right. I do know that we had financials because, of course, we had financials, but I don't know anything about them. To later saying, but the financials are perfect. To know the financials undervalued. So that's one of the.
So, Carl, we'll be getting to Israel, you know, near the end of the stream here, but I'm going to have to disagree with you. You know, once I'm going to need you to answer this simple question. What is Israel going to do or is doing that the massive United States military didn't do in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam when it lost its conflicts against guerrillas or terrorists? So if you can answer that question with something provable and definitive, I'd like to have a discussion. But until somebody can give me a straight answer about what strategies the IDF is going to employ that's somehow going to destroy Hamas, and by the way, destroy Hamas without invading southern Gaza, nobody's talking about that. You're not destroying Hamas unless you are doing a full-blown invasion of southern Gaza as well. The whole thing's a fucking canard, my favorite word. So I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced that Israel has the ability to destroy Hamas. I don't even know what the fuck that means. What are you going to destroy the idea?
Reasons
I'm not convinced.
That you had to keep a chart of the defenses because they're so. It's like I didn't do it, but if I did do it, this was my mental state, and it was just so inconsistent. I really don't think he helped himself.
And if I did do it, they were perfect anyways.
Can you commit a crime?
Okay.
I mean,
that's all I got. Okay. Hold on. This is kind of a good question, but then I'm done. I can't take this.
And if I did do it, they were perfect anyways.
Can you commit a crime? I mean, this is a civil proceeding. Nobody faces jail time. Donald Trump has already been hauled onto the stage. If he violates the gag order, he could, snatch some jail time from the jaws of a civil proceeding. If you perjure yourself in a civil proceeding, can you be charged?
Yes, you can.
So that's fascinating. They're trying to figure out how much to take from the Trump organization because, like I said, they're already guilty. But if you lie during those proceedings, then a new trial can start from that, which can then lead to jail time because you're not allowed to lie in court, no matter how slick you think you are. Anyway, that's all I can do with this segment. Last little thing pertaining to right-wingers or Trump or anything is, I guess I got to talk about this guy. I mean, he's exactly what I've been warning. He's exactly what the argument that I've been making about the Republican Party. He's everything I've been warning about. He's literally exactly what I've been saying. They're not interested in democracy. Is it authoritarian dictatorship or a theocracy? You pick. It's whatever sleazebag wins in that Hunger Games that they're going to have internally as a party. The idea that the old GOP still exists, it does still exist. It's in its last gasps. It's in its last years. This is the new GOP. This is MAGA. This is the party of insurrectionists. This is the party of lies and bad acting and grifting and total full-blown corruption with a nice little sprinkling of fascism. Extremely dangerous. I also need to point out that the MAGA across the country is not 50% of the country. It's maybe 50% of the Republican Party voters. Okay? It's no longer a minority. It's no longer the minority of the minority. It's just the minority, i.e. the Republican Party. They are MAGA. The Chris Christies, the Mitt Romneys, the Mitch McConnells, they're holding on by a fucking thread. This is the new fascist future of the Republican Party. Here it is.
Mr. Speaker, can I get a timeline from you on your thoughts about impeachment? Chairman Comer has suggested that his investigation is winding down. Do you feel right now that there is enough evidence to move on articles of impeachment? And how quickly could we see that process play out? And if you've already decided that you're heading towards articles of impeachment, or is there more that you need to see?
So, many of you know my background. I'm a constitutional law attorney.
He's asking, are you going to attempt to impeach Biden? Right? There's no evidence. They got the best thing they got is some fucking check that was made before Biden's presidency. That's their smoking gun. Evidence that doesn't qualify for impeachment. So the question is, hey, are you going to waste everyone's time and taxpayer dollars doing a sham impeachment?
I believe this is a very serious matter. I was called upon to serve on the impeachment defense team in the House twice under President Trump when the Democrats used it for raw partisan political purposes, and I decried that at each step of the way. The reason is because the impeachment power that we have in the Constitution, in the House...
I believe he's talking about the Republican-run January 6th committee.
Step of the way. The reason is because the impeachment power that we have in the Constitution, in the House specifically, next to a declaration of war, you could argue it's the heaviest power that we have, and it cannot be wielded for political purposes. So I have been very consistent, intellectually consistent in this, and persistent that we have to follow due process and we have to follow the law. That means following our obligation under the Constitution and doing appropriate.
Doesn't the does the Bible say something about lying? Isn't lying bad if you're a Christian? Aren't you going to go to hell if you're a fucking straight up serial liar? Isn't that somewhere in that book?
Appropriate investigations in the right way, at the right pace, so that the evidence comes in and we follow the evidence where it leads. We follow the truth where it leads. So as we stand here today, I'm not predetermined that, but I do believe that very soon we are coming to a point of decision on it. We're in the impeachment inquiry phase, as you know, which is an important step in that due process. And what you're seeing right now, although a lot of American people are anxious about this, many, Republicans across the country are anxious to get to the end point on this, and I think some Democrats want to know how it ends as well. What you're seeing right now is a deliberate constitutional process that was envisioned by the founders, the framers of the Constitution. This is how they envisioned this to go, not the way the Democrats did it: snap impeachments, sham impeachments, and all the rest. So I know that people are anxious about it, but I will say, Chairman Comer, Chairman Jordan in Judiciary, Chairman Smith in Ways and Means, they've done an extraordinary job, very methodically. And
Jim Jordan, traitor to the country and full-blown proud insurrectionist. Jim Jordan.
I would say outside the scope of politics. They've been taking in the evidence as it goes. So we're going to follow the evidence where it leads, and we'll see.
Okay. Sounds like bullshit to me. Sounds like they're doing it. Sounds like they're doing it, but he's leaving a little wiggle room open in case they just can't figure out any kind of anything. They can't make anything stick to the wall. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like, yeah, we're doing it, but just in case I can't find literally any kind of shit to throw against the wall that'll stick, I have a little bit of wiggle room to pull out, right? To claim like I didn't want to do this. Oh, just following the law, and no, the law found nothing. Do you guys know our home in the UK, your minister, what's the homeless people? Yeah, the Suella Braverman. Yeah, that story. I should have had that queued up. Suella Braverman, who's part of the Tory government, Minister of the Interior. Thank you, Leon. She's proposing to ban the use of tents by homeless people. Apparently, she said somewhere in her argument she was saying that it's a lifestyle choice. It's a lifestyle choice. Suella Braverman is infamous in the UK for being an Indian woman who is extremely racist towards immigrants. It's beyond irony. Carl Toes, what I mean is that more civilians are being killed in Gaza than Hamas fighters, so I'm trying to say that Israel's target is not clear and smart. Carl, you're 100% correct, and it's never been, like, Israel used to be able to get away with this shit. Israel is not, I'm already seeing articles about pressure on Israel. We're going to get to Gaza. I have that article queued up, so stay tuned. Protesters believe that all you have to do is accept Jesus, Protestants, and then you can be as corrupt as you want. Well, isn't that convenient? Isn't that fucking convenient? I would, you know, I mean, as an agnostic guy, I wish Jesus Christ was real, because you know why? Guys like this would be sweating, would be fucking sweating, dude. This man's a nihilist who cloaks himself from religion and uses religion as a tool to manipulate and control the people around him. This man doesn't believe in fucking God. This man believes in his wallet. All right, moving on. I'd smoke a joint with Jesus. You fucking know it. So let's jump into this really. We're not going to play the whole 10.5 hours of WION news. I believe this is Indian news. In-depth. Yeah, we'll go with Indian. Ukraine says Russian warplanes drop explosives on Black Sea shipping lanes. So we're seeing more Black Sea antagonism from Ukraine, who doesn't have a navy and has been successfully harassing and antagonizing the Black Sea fleet. And also, by the way, let's be clear, Ukraine has also been able to successfully secure grain shipments, subverting Russia's attempt to prevent grain from leaving the country, which is another massive victory for Ukraine. So let's jump in here.
Ukrainian authorities claim that Russia has attacked more than 100 settlements in the last 24 hours, marking the heaviest day of Russian shelling this year. To talk more on the latest developments on ground, we're now being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Grant from Riga in Latvia. Colonel Grant is a former advisor to the Defense Minister of Ukraine and also fellow at Baltic Security Foundation. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us on Beyond, Colonel Grant.
Thank you.
Right, Colonel Grant, I want to first seek your assessment as to how do you assess the on-ground situation at the moment with Russia shelling more than 100 settlements within the last 24 hours, and this is the highest in a single day this year.
It is. And Russia has been having an extremely hard time around Avdiivka on the east side of Ukraine for the last couple of weeks. And they've been losing huge amounts of soldiers in extremely poorly orchestrated and managed attacks. And I believe that they've actually changed the commander for this area. So this may reflect the new commander showing that he's intent on doing something. But just attacking all the settlements along the side doesn't actually make much difference. Because they've been attacked regularly, solidly for all this year. So I think this sounds to me more like a touch of desperation than any great hope that they're going to use this to break through. These are difficult times for both sides. I mean, it's definitely a touch of stalemate. But the evidence is that Ukraine marginally has the upper hand.
Right, you speak of how Ukraine marginally has an upper hand in the ongoing war, but especially with these barrage of shells
To answer your question, Leon, I would have to venture a guess. I would say China, India, and other allies that are steadfastly continuing to trade with Russia. What did we expect? What did we expect when we acquiesced to the concept of American exceptionalism? When we acquiesced to the idea that America represents planet Earth? Right? And we all humanity has kind of just accepted that America number one. It's this weird American exceptionalism. Wait, we need to break free of this idea that any one country owns the planet or has the rights to do whatever they want across the globe. There needs to be a reconfiguration of how we consider global power and how we cooperate, right? Like a UN 2.0. The problem is that, with the current power dynamic, the United States is never going to altruistically reduce its power in an effort to, create world peace. That's up to us. It's totally up to us because the government derives its power from the people. And the government is not going to do anything unless the people demand it. It's complicated, incredibly difficult, and it would be, a decades-long process to do that, a centuries-long process maybe. But it does need to happen because what is the end result of the United States getting away with, being the number one dominant geopolitical power, no matter what? We get these alliances, China, Russia, all these other, Brazil, all these other countries trying to figure out, okay, how can we, we don't want to work within this system. It's an unfair system. You either play within this system and within the system's rules and get screwed over, or you get turned into Cuba or Venezuela. It's super unfair. And if you're really unlucky, well, then you get fucking invaded, like Afghanistan for 20 fucking years, or Iraq. They came in, they fucking fucked up everything, just like what they did to Iran. Anyway. I'm just, it's hard. There's no side to defend here, except for the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainians, country's desire for and demand for democracy and liberty. But it's so frustrating because this is really difficult. How does the left turn this into a slogan? What I just said. How does the left turn that nuance into a slogan that people can, get behind? It seems impossible. I don't know.
Targeted at Ukraine by Russia. What is the way forward for the Ukrainian troops as
strategy.
The war has been going on? It's the 617th day of the ongoing war.
It is.
Leon, I agree with you, Leon, but I also don't like the idea that we have to accept the least worst empire and we just have to act, we have to be, vassals underneath this massive fucking empire. I don't like that idea either.
And but you see, a lot of that shelling doesn't go on to anywhere that there's much fighting. A lot of it has been onto just civilian villages behind the front line. So all it does is create a bit more terror where there is already terror. So yes, there'll be civilian casualties. Yes, some of the old people will have to move. But it doesn't actually change the fighting on the front line particularly. So this is more terror than it is specific fighting. But there have been lots of reports that the Ukrainian troops are tired, and it's not surprising. I mean, as you say, 600 days of war. But just to remind you, that's 600 days since the big invasion. They were fighting for another 8 years before that.
That's a great point. Great
right,
fucking point.
I was just coming to that experts, they sense some kind of tiredness among the troops on both the sides, Russia and Ukraine. But I want to seek your assessment as to, do you think that the war is now moving into a new attritional stage which will benefit Russia?
That's a good question. The attritional stage, it depends how long it goes on for and what they get. I mean, if Russia if Russia can keep rebuild its industry and things, then it could be to the strength of Russia.
I don't know, dog. I don't know, Leon. I'd have to know more about these communist movements to agree with you, but anytime I've heard of communist victories, they're usually way the fuck overblown Because where the fuck is the Communist Party in the UK then? If they had such brilliant victories, you know, we got motherfucking Keir Starmer, right? He represents the left in the UK. So I don't know, man. Were they that effective, the commies?
But equally, Ukraine has still got a lot of countries that are supporting it, and there are a lot of things that have been undergoing on the Ukrainian side, support from the EU, support from other countries that have still to come through to benefit the Ukraine side. So I don't see much change in the battlefield as it is at the moment, and I think both sides will get tired. But I don't think that it completely benefits Russia more than Ukraine. Because the Russians are just losing too many people because they're not fighting very well.
Yes, Colonel Grant. Now, I mean, the war has clearly crossed 600 days. You speak of how both the sides will eventually get tired, Russia and Ukraine. What happens after that?
Well,
what?
I mean,
what are you talking about? I'm sorry. What is she talking about? What happens when both sides get too tired? Is she talking about runs out of resources? Such a dumb question.
And then we're looking at politics and whether the country, the Ukrainian country, will accept some sort of political agreement in the short term. At the moment, there's no appetite for that at all. And in fact, anybody who suggests that...
I disagree with Davey as well, that not every communist movement is an extremist movement. And yeah, Lenny, I agree with you, but it doesn't seem very likely, not until China has a big stumble and fall of its own. It's amazing how well they've been able to keep the lid on Avant-Garde, or whatever the hell it's called. That massive real estate conglomerate worth tens of billions of dollars, just, you know, money just burning up like a furnace. And the Chinese market humming along. It's almost like the whole thing's made up.
That there should be should be a political agreement is pretty much given a hard time in Ukraine, because the population, what they want is the Ukrainian government to do things better.
I think you're right,
not to actually to give in, because they're not doing things very well. So I don't see that there's any appetite at the moment for a political settlement. I think it will just drag on and drag on and drag on until one side or the other actually breaks. And I don't see any sign of that in the next 2 years.
You fucking nailed it, John Madden, and good comment, Leon.
Yes.
Right, Colonel Grant. Also, what did Zelensky accomplish in his latest visit to the United States of America?
That's a good question. And accomplish is probably the wrong word. I think what he may have realized is that American politics is going to play the major part in the support for Ukraine. It's quite clear that lots of people are getting tired of listening to Zelensky begging for weapons all the time, and want to see more from Ukraine, from Zelensky, especially about corruption and rule of law in Ukraine. And I'm absolutely 100% sure that he was told this again on this recent trip to US. But he needs to be very careful with the U.S. because there are still a lot of the Republicans.
Just throw some more red meat their way, Zelensky. I mean, that anti-corruption news is really juicy and really delicious. But what's the problem? What, you got buddies you're protecting? I mean, come on, Zelensky. You're brand new to this, dude. You can't have that close of ties with people, with these oligarchs that helped you get into the presidency. I mean, come on. I mean, what's the reason to not do it? That you would hurt your relationship with an important person who can help the war effort in Ukraine. But goddamn, there's got to be more low-hanging fruit. You know, that whole thing that he did with the recruiters, right? Telling all the recruiters that were taking bribes and stuff, get the fuck out. You can either keep your title and go straight to the front line, or you can literally be removed from the military because the person that's going to take your job is a veteran from the front lines. Brilliant move. So let's see more of that.
Are very, very wary of continuing to put things into
I think it's funded by the Indian state. I think it's Indian news. I think it's I don't know if it's Indian state news or Indian corporate news. I'm not sure.
They see it a bottomless pit. They will want to see that Zelensky has got a better plan and a better idea for what he's going to do in the future.
My last question to Colonel Grant, how do you assess the impact of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war on the Russia-Ukraine war?
Good question.
A lot. And I think that this is why Russia has been supporting it and why Hamas visited Moscow to probably get instructions and to brief about this. I mean, I think you have to see this as part of the same thing. This is all about Russia and China trying to destabilize the world. And Israel and Palestine is just one part of that. And I can assure you there will be somewhere else and there will be something else because Russia needs everything it can to pull resources away from Ukraine and to pull energy away from Ukraine so that they can actually win the war.
Right, Colonel Grant. Thanks very much for...
Interesting. All right. Well, there you go. Some colonel. There's his opinions. And let me just make clear, I think Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, is an absolute monster. And I showed the first part of that Modi documentary. The other parts weren't released then, but they have been now. And I should get back to that and show that Modi documentary because it's fascinating. I mean, hiring death squads, religious ethnic cleansing. I mean, it's just unbelievable, this guy. And he's got to be the least charismatic dude I've ever seen in my life. I don't get it. I don't get the attraction. I've seen floating pieces of driftwood more interesting than Narendra Modi, if I said that correctly. But let's keep going with our Ukraine update. And I wanted, because Wagner was actually brought up during the last stream, we were talking about, well, what the hell is Wagner anymore? Is it just a brand without Prigozhin? Well, popped up in my feed here how Russia is restructuring Wagner's African operations. So I thought this was rather relevant from the Wall Street Journal, the paper that lied to us about the Iraq war and got us into the Iraq war by lying to us. That was really cool. So you can trust the Wall Street Journal, guys.
On the day of the Wagner Group's attempted coup against the Kremlin, the group's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, made a point of humiliating one man.
Boy, talk about mistake. I knew it was a mistake the moment he stopped driving towards Russia. What a mistake, dude. He had a legitimate chance not to take the Kremlin, but to take like a really important building and hold it and like take important hostages and hold them. But no, he pussed out. He Daddy Putin gave him a call and he asked him nicely. Man, what a sucker, dude. Ultimately, Prigozhin was a naive idiot. I guess he was really good at sending men to their death one after the other in a meat grinder, and somehow convincing them that was worth it. I guess he was talented at that, but I can't believe how naive he was. And then we see him at the African political summit, trying to hobnob. It's like, dude, you needed to build a rocket ship and go to the frickin' moon, dude. How the hell are you still in front of a camera?
Deputy Minister of Defense Yunusbek Yevkorov in a video that was later shared widely on social media.
I can't imagine that Yevkorov in that moment wasn't thinking, I can't wait to get
Oliver, maybe.
I think that video is one reason why we see Yevkorov in the front right now.
Thank you, Endis.
Now, after Prigozhin's death, Yevkorov is leading a new power structure 100%. That will take over the Wagner Group's sprawling operation in Africa, which has advanced Russian influence on the continent for almost a decade. In late August and early September, Yevkorov led a Russian delegation to countries in Africa where Wagner provided security assistance for unstable governments. The trip was meant to reassure their leaders and offer them alternatives.
Putin is trying to send a signal. The adults are in the room now. These guys are in charge. Don't worry.
Yevkorov and his delegation's first stop was Libya to meet with Khalifa Haftar, commander of a faction that controls eastern Libya. Wagner has provided military support to Haftar in exchange for Russia using the country as a logistics hub to deploy men and weapons across the continent.
God, it's so dirty.
In footage of the delegation's meetings in Libya,
this
we can see Andrei
geopolitics is so dirty.
a major general in the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency. Western intelligence agencies allege Averyanov led a GRU unit responsible for assassinations in Europe. Now, he is responsible for directly overseeing Russia's operations in Africa.
In some ways, he is almost like the godfather of sabotage and shadow operations. And when he walks into the room, I think it sends a message, don't mess around.
The next stop in the delegation's tour was Burkina Faso, to meet with Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the interim leader of the country. Burkina Faso was Wagner's next frontier. They'd laid the groundwork for a presence there with influence operations and courting the coup leadership. The delegation's visit shows Russia is still interested in gaining a foothold in the country. Seated next to General Averyanov in these meetings is Konstantin Mirzians, the leader of a private military company, or PMC, called Redoute, one of two PMCs tapped by the Kremlin to take over parts of Wagner's operation in Africa. Redoute is one of Russia's oldest PMCs. It protected Russian oil assets in Syria and fought on the front lines in Ukraine.
What this tells us is Putin is less interested in deception. He knows that the cover's been blown off, basically.
He should have known.
He is more invested in making sure that the deals that he does with client states in Africa or the Middle East, these sort of mostly despotic regimes, manage to continue to be stable.
Redoute is financed by the oligarch Gennady Timchenko, a close associate of Vladimir Putin. This new structure replaces Prigozhin's role of financier with members of Putin's innermost circle.
For the next Prigozhin or Prigozhin replacement, should there be one, the work ahead is to create a completely new network of untraceable, unsanctionable organizations, entities, and means of transferring value and money to each other.
Great. Super
The delegation's third stop was the Central African Republic, where the Wagner Group is deeply entrenched. They met with President Faustin Touadéra, who is personally protected by Wagner fighters and has publicly expressed his desire for continuity after Prigozhin's death. In addition to Redoute, the Kremlin is tapping another private military company called Convoy. PMC Convoy was founded less than a year ago and is led by Konstantin Pikolov. It's financed by Arkady Rotenberg, another oligarch in Putin's inner circle. Pikolov, a Wagner Group veteran with experience in the Central African Republic, is recruiting convoy fighters for missions in Africa.
We have seen people go from Redoute to Wagner and back, and then on to Convoy. They're actually a confederation of entities, almost like kind of shell companies for Africa operations that the GRU wants to support.
The delegation's final stop was Mali, where the trio of Yevkurov, Averyanov, and Mirzians met with the country's ruling military junta. Mali has been Wagner's most challenging theater. The group has struggled to expand the territory under government control, and the security situation is rapidly deteriorating after the withdrawal of UN peacekeeping forces. Replacing Wagner in Africa is a difficult and high-stakes task for Russia.
There's some churning on the ground. Commanders on the ground are having a hard time cleaning things up, keeping things coherent and cogent.
Still, Russia is committed to its new structure for expanding its influence in Africa. Later in September, the same delegation made return trips to both Libya and Mali. In Mali, they met with representatives of the new ruling junta of Niger, another unstable regime where Russia hopes to gain a foothold.
I mean, very interesting video. And just to respond to what Lenny's saying, yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Prigozhin himself was a very interesting and unique character. You know, started off as a caterer, close friend of Putin. I mean, started off as a criminal in prison, but then, got close to Putin in that way. And that's where he made his connections. Very interesting, not interesting as in good, but, fascinating, interesting character. in terms of how he was able to worm his way from literally nothing, from a fucking convict to running a multi-billion-dollar PMC. Yeah, we're definitely not going to see a Prigozhin anytime soon. And honestly, I think, you know, like I said before, I don't know, I didn't really get from this clip here, you know, the sustainability of everything. It just looks like they're reaching out, you know, and sending oligarchs and specialists and whatnot. I guess the adults in the room, as they would say, to kind of take over affairs over there, because I mean, Wagner is extracting billions of dollars in precious metals, and you know, with illegal mining operations, all, you know, not illegal, actually they're totally legal inside the country, but you know, they're ad hoc mining operations that they're using to fund these shadow operations. So of course Russia would want to get in there very quickly. In fact, I think one of the first things, negotiating steps that was taken, was Prigozhin had to give up full control over all of Wagner's assets. I think that was part of the deal to, you know, they were lying to him, you know, but part of the deal to keep his life. Be like, okay, well, for this ridiculous stunt, I guess we'll let you live if, you know, if you give us all the information, give us all the companies, give us all the connection, give us all the names. And I think he did. And I think he did, because I think he thought he was going to live somehow. Hi, random letters and numbers. You're not going to be trouble at all, are you? You're going to have a normal adult discussion about political topics, aren't you? Random letters and numbers. Oh, is that what that is? Okay, folks, I wanted to show this. It's not, you're not going to see any graphic images. You don't see any dead bodies. I mean, I double checked this video. He says he points to a bush. Let me just double check this real quick. Oops. He points to a bush and says there's some like dead bodies beyond the bush, but it's really, you know, like what happens when you get a quiet moment? You know, you went there with a team, you went there with a group of buddies, you know, you went there to fight a war. Yeah, you don't see any dead bodies. I mean, maybe it's hard to tell what the hell. No, that's a machine gun encampment. No, he's got machine guns set up, trees. No, you don't see any dead bodies in this video. But it's this Russian finds himself alone, his comrades dead, Ukraine, you know, like half a mile in one direction, you know, cluster bombs going off. And he's just lamenting his situation. And to top it all off, the video opens up with footage of him and his comrades, him and his fellow soldiers, celebrating and partying before they go to the front line, which is a pretty common thing. You know, they get all drunk and party, and it's kind of a bad idea. They get to know each other really well. They get all drunk and friendly, and then they go to the front line and you know, get shredded, get completely torn to shit. And we kind of get that perspective of this guy who's just completely over his head, and you know, very likely about to die. You know, it's only a matter of time. Whoa, homie, Jesus. Sorry.
Вот у нас утро доброе. Наши пацаны лежат. Там второй. Короче, это пизда. Вот там эти пидоры. Такая хуйня.
You gotta go home, man. You gotta go. You gotta surrender. You gotta go home. What are you fighting for? A paycheck? I mean, I've worked like shitty jobs where I'm like, yo, this isn't worth the money. You know, you fucking clean up your own puke off the floor. I'm not doing this. Right? What? Give up, dude. Throw up. You're like the only one left. Oh no, I'll get, you know, I mean, it's not that easy. It really isn't. It really isn't just, you know, give up and then they just, it's like a video game, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, I give up. So I understand that. But what are you fighting for, bro? What do you want to buy a house in Ukraine? Is that what's going on? You like, you know, you visited Crimea and you're like, gosh, this is so nice. I'd like to live here. Own it forever. What are you fucking fighting for? I don't get the motivation. Look at this guy. He's fucked. Not necessarily. Endis, not necessarily. It's not a guaranteed death sentence like, you know, standing your ground and fighting against the Ukrainian army that is successfully pushing, albeit slowly, but successfully pushing against Russia. Very slowly, though, but slowly but surely. I mean, have you seen the death counts? We're talking hundreds and hundreds of soldiers a day. A day, dude. Dozens of vehicles of various makes and models blown up every single fucking day. Right? It's not a blitzkrieg, but it is a consistent day after day after day, victory over victory after victory against Russia. Yes, Ukraine doesn't win every single battle, but it's a fucking slaughter out there if you're a Russian.
На всякий случай. Тоже пулемет у меня стоит нахуй.
For the honor of the motherland? Okay. For the empire. Where's he gonna go, Lenny? You know, if you can't retreat, you get shot at by your commanding officer and your comrades. You can't go forward unless you're surrendering. And even then, you know, it's you know, it's your odds of surviving are not guaranteed. You know, not everyone gets a drone that flies over their head and you can, you know, wave the white flag. Most of those drones are dropping grenades. They're not dropping water.
Эти петухи, ёбаные. Короче, разъебали нихуево, блядь.
It's just, it's like in a movie. It's just, you know, a quiet moment on the battlefield. Guy finds himself completely alone and he just, you know, and he's just lamenting, you know. It's shocking, you know. Just a quiet minute and 30 seconds on the battlefield. Shocking. Just totally shocking. Speaking of shocking, I'm not going to play this whole video, but I did want to play the first part. Russia is apparently very proud of implementing a new thermobaric weapon system, and I wanted to play this here, not to frighten you, but just to inform you that you know, Ukraine is you know, even though Russia doesn't have its shit together on the battlefield, that does not mean that it's not deadly. And I wanted to show this just to show, you know, let's not get too cocky. We are up against a massive nation.
Picture your
Endis, that, I mean, no offense, you seem like a nice person, but that is a rather simplistic view of the current situation. You know, Hamas slaughtering innocent Israeli civilians does not change the day-to-day reality of the battlefield in Ukraine. It might affect aid in the next coming, you know, 3 to 6 months, maybe. Yeah, no, it's not changing the day-to-day reality currently on the battlefield in Ukraine right now.
Yourself on a battlefield confronted by a devastating weapon capable of causing widespread destruction. In that very moment, you might feel as if you're facing certain...
So I wanted to show this one more time because it really is frightening. Imagine you are in a trench, you know, you're in some position, but look at the coverage. And I also want you to look at the pressure wave, because that's the thing that makes thermobaric weapons so frightening. And this video doesn't really get into it, but you throw up your guts. You get churned inside out. Your head explodes. The air is stolen from your lungs. Really, really nasty way to die. You don't have to be close to the bomb. You could be away from the bomb and still have it kill you. Very dangerous weapons. And I want you to see the coverage here. Look at the pressure waves and look at the amount of area that one strike, the amount of damage, you know, in just a pretty large area actually can be done here.
Spread destruction. In that very moment.
So you see those pressure waves, anything, right? Anything. It's not a shrapnel thing, and they are throwing shrapnel, but anything in this radius is dead, right? That's the frightening aspect of these thermobaric weapons.
Devastating weapon capable of causing widespread destruction. In that very moment, you might feel as if you're facing certain death, even if your body remains intact.
Yeah, Zeoduke, exactly.
That's how the Ukrainian troops might feel knowing that the Russian military is using their powerful new thermobaric weapon, the TOS-2 Tosochka 220mm rocket launcher.
Well, once again, to answer your question, Endus, I think what we're going to see in the winter is very similar to what we saw last winter. A slowdown, you know, skirmishes and battles fought where it's convenient, but we're going to see... well, actually, I mean, last winter, actually, it wasn't a slowdown, was it? The Ukrainian soldiers were comfortable fighting in the winter and were better prepared than the Russians, you know, to traverse the terrain because the terrain was frozen. We might, you know what? I take that back. We might actually see Ukraine, you know, trying to take the advantage here. Russia may be saying, okay, this is going to be an opportunity for us to catch our breath and resupply our lines. But we might see Ukraine say, no, winter is our opportunity. We know Russia is undersupplied. We know their troops are not equipped for the winter. This might be our opportunity to, you know, to secure the advantage. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We'll see, actually. We'll see. I'm not quite sure now that I've kind of talked myself out of it.
On October 17th, 2023, the Russian Ministry of Defense officially acknowledged the deployment of the TOS-2 thermobaric rocket launcher in Ukraine, which has proven to be extraordinarily effective and deadly.
Good question, Marks and Recreation. I am making my assessment based off of Russia's performance last winter, where they were not prepared. They did not provide frontline soldiers with food, you know, trench candles even, and of course proper winter gear. You know, they've had a whole season, they've had a whole, you know, several months to turn that around. So maybe that's not the case. But to answer your question, I'm basing that conclusion off of Russia's previous performance last winter.
It's important to highlight that since the beginning of the Ukrainian conflict, Russia has been employing
yeah, okay. So you're one of those people. Okay, I get you. Okay. I'll go ahead and throw a 1 in the chat to time Marks and Recreation out. We can already see where he's going here. Took Bakhmut. Is that supposed to... Okay, it's very clear where you're going already, buddy.
Thermobaric rocket launchers, including the TOS-1 within Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Defense even described this system as a source of panic.
Are you, I mean, honestly, Marks and Recreation, are you considering Bakhmut a victory?
Defense specialists even suggest that the most effective strategy to counter this technology is the swift detection and elimination of the launchers before they become operational. This underscores just how intimidating the Russian thermobaric system is. Given the fear-inducing nature of the previous version of the Russian thermobaric rocket launcher, one can't help but wonder, just how terrifying will the newest TOS-2 prove to be?
I don't know, but I'm sure we're going to find out. The real question is, because we've seen this scaremongering with their big advanced Armada tank that they've literally not deployed a single one. You know, okay, yeah, big and scary, brand new. Wow, we should be very afraid. How many of them can you know, do they have 500 of them? And are they on their way to the front lines? Do they have the missiles and their armaments that they require, all the ammo that they require? Have the soldiers been trained? You know, is it similar to the old system or is it a new system, right? Do we need to be retrained on these things? So that's the real question. Sure, it's frightening and it's new and be afraid of it. Like I said, are they actually sending these to the front line in mass quantities to actually make a difference to the frontline battlefield? To me, that's always the question when I see these, you know, be afraid kind of propaganda things. And this is military TV. This is what they do. So you know, I don't know about the agenda. Who? Everyone? You're literally making a Fox News argument. Well, some people said Russia was already done. Who? I didn't. Not the analysts that I've been reporting on and showing on the News Underground. So who the fuck are you talking about, Marks? Sounds to me like you're making a straw man and then slam dunking on the straw man. That's what it sounds like to me. Katana, you know, I'm not as confident as I was just a few months ago that Ukraine will have a total victory, because it's all about the West. It's all about support from the West. Up until recently, we had unequivocal support from the West, and now all of a sudden, we got Kirby over here talking about how we can't help Ukraine forever. So if the West chickens out, the whole thing goes ass up. So here's a little bit of that assault near the Kerch Bridge. Another angle, the Ukrainian cruise missile flying towards the dock facilities in Kerch, Crimea. So I guess this is an attempt to blow up the dock facilities. I guess these would be the guys that are actually repairing the bridge. A large fire is already visible at the area where the missile is flying towards, indicating that Ukraine is using multiple missiles for the strike. If someone has any, you know, thank you, by the way, to Dirty Crackhead, to DCH in the Discord for providing this footage. So there's a cruise missile right there. Okay, wow. Great footage. Literally could be almost anything. I mean, honestly, this doesn't confirm shit for me. It's pretty fucking sketchy. But as we can see a fire over here. This is apparently the dock facilities, and we see a cruise missile on its way. Not this thing. Where is it here? Yeah, this thing right here. Okay, yeah, and I think that explosion that we hear is this explosion right here happening. All right, interesting. Stay tuned. We're gonna have better footage coming up soon. Almost fits in UFO footage. I'm so tired of blurry UFO footage. The money shot and nothing else. I'm so fed up with the dick teasers and the fucking with the UFOologist, dude. They might as well be a waitress at Hooters. I'm so tired of the dick teasing. Money shot or nothing. Money shot or nothing. If I see one more blurry photo of a fucking, you know, frisbee, I think we're gaining their territory military. I think that over time Russia will lose and hold on to those territories. I mean, you know, that's a good point, Davey. It's going to be hard going while Russia continues to have, you know, economic support from China and India, etc. I mean, the United States is still buying oil from Russia. Am I wrong about that, Davey? Or is the United States literally still buying oil from Russia? Has that changed since the last time I reported on that? So here's a different angle. Once again, thank you to your boy, Dirty Crackhead in the Discord for these wonderful links. Thank you, DCH. Got another angle here. There's the UFO, guys. There we go. Proof. Damn, that's a lot of booms. I'm hearing a lot of booms. Oh, shit. Right there. Yep. Shit. That's a lot of fucking booms, dude. Ooh, there's another one. God damn. Wow. Okay. And here's our last video for the Ukraine-Russia segment. USA is buying oil from India. So they're the crude oil that they're acquiring from Russia, they're just buying that from India. Is that what's going on? Pretty sure the U.S. has adjusted its purchase to other countries like Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. Okay. Well, good. Good. It's not enough. But I don't know. I've honestly, you know, everyone was saying Russia's going to run out of ammo. Russia's going to run out of money. Everyone's saying their economy is going to collapse because of trillions of dollars or tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars lost because of Avangard. None of it's happening. You know, and this goes back to what I was saying originally, that I do think the West, there does need to be better there does need to be honest acting. You know, the way that Russia was treated, you know, pre-invasion, that deserves scrutiny. The way that NATO was belligerent towards Russia, that deserves scrutiny. The fact is that the United States is not an honest actor. It's not the good guy. The United States only works with you if the United States can exploit you. If you got to pay the toll, man. You don't get to play with Uncle Sam unless you got something to give him. That's a problem. That's a problem. I don't know how to fucking fix it though. I'll tell you what. So okay, back to the fucking enough ranting. I wanted to show this because I'm curious how the mainstream media is predicting this. You know, we've heard actual experts like Vlad Vexler talk about how he thinks the Putin administration, Putin dynasty will end. So I wanted to see what the Telegraph was saying here, because I'm curious, what is the misconceptions or preconceptions that the West is making about how this could potentially end in Russia with Putin? I got a feeling it's going to be overly optimistic, oh, it'll all just collapse. He's a mafia don. He's a mafia don, and he's going to get assassinated and all that. I mean, Vlad Vexler has made it very clear that Putin has set up a situation where he is he is it. There is no alternative. There is no challenge politically or, in any realm to his power. There's no successor. There's nothing. It begins and ends with Putin. And that's the system that he's built. So I'm skeptical of a coup. I'm quite skeptical of a coup. But I don't know. Tell me what you think. Like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, Avangard. Yeah, Zeoduke. I mean, I think bigger, though. I think bigger than both of those combined. Avangard. Going to end with nothing happening to him. You think so, Star Troopian? You think he's just going to die and then they'll figure it out, like Stalin?
Notorious gangster and racketeer Alphonse Gabriel Capone. Notorious gangster and racketeer Alphonse Gabriel Capone, alternatively known as Scarface, Big Al and Snorky, which somehow was a slang term in 19...
I agree, Davey. I don't agree with this pro-Western idea that NATO was just minding its own business, putting fucking missile bases in Poland. You know, I do agree that NATO is being belligerent. Of course, it does not justify the actions of Russia and its invasion. But there are so many things that people conveniently forget when they're, you know, talking their shit on Morning Joe. You know, it's like, really, that, you know, we're not going to talk about, you know, we're just minding our own business. They hate us because they hate us, guys.
1920s America, meaning sharp dresser.
Thank you,
wasn't
Chem
eventually undone by his bootlegging activities or the St. Valentine's Day massacre. No, in 1932 he was sent to the federal prison in Atlanta, having been convicted of tax evasion. That, plus a diagnosis of syphilis, meant it was a pretty derisory end for the gangster once dubbed public enemy #1.
Okay, what point are you making here?
When you look at supposedly roughy-toughy strong men, I wonder if Putin, for all his bare-chested horse riding and other manly pursuits, might, like Al Capone, similarly be brought...
Katana, I'm just going to assume you're correct. And yeah, no, it's you know, it's not like Russia was just sitting there minding its own business either, you know, but for any progress to be made diplomatically, somebody has to be the good actor. Somebody has to be, you know, okay, fine, we'll compromise, we'll forgive you for the mistakes of the past. Here's a good, you know, good-natured action, right? We removed a base. I always talk about how, you know what we should do? We should, you know, start NATO negotiations. We should restart NATO negotiations. This was before the war, but I was suggesting that NATO should, you know, voluntarily close one of its bases and say, we're doing this out of goodwill. We want to have a real discussion with Russia. We really want to sit down. We want to stop the belligerence, and we want to turn a new page, right? Hillary Clinton called it a reset button, you know, whatever fucking vernacular you want to use. But I believe NATO should have done that. But of course, the war has turned everything on its head, and you know, good luck criticizing NATO for the next 50 fucking years.
Down to earth one day for an equally humdrum reason.
Yeah, Endus, I totally disagree. I don't think that's going to be the fate of Ukraine either. I disagree.
There was a window early in the full-scale invasion when the oligarchs around Putin, the money men, the ones who control the assets and therefore, to a very large extent, the economy of Russia.
Rare statement by Marx that I agree with, because yeah, the Zoomer style editing of this video is infuriating. I feel like I'm watching a Nickelodeon clip.
Russia could have grouped together to unseat him. Of course, they would have needed the assistance of the security apparatus and probably the army, but that's fine, they can all be bought. However, once the lightning 3-week offensive that's now motoring with the elegance of a rusty T-55 towards the 2-year point faltered and was shown to be an utter shambles, many of those who had made vast fortunes from Putin's system of kleptocracy had a chance to act. Not that they had anything against dictators and taking for themselves money that should rightfully have gone to the people. Their motivation was not born of a sudden outbreak of ethics and a desire to support democracy and the rule of law. On the contrary, they love a bit of cronyism and the trappings it brings. They enjoy their yachts, and their wives and girlfriends enjoy the high life, provided they never meet. But the oligarchs, as powerful as they were, knew their assets were only really worth anything if they were able to be listed on the international exchanges, positions that also lent the whole sorry venture a veneer of respectability. Londongrad didn't earn its tawdry nickname for nothing. So they were all for the kleptocratic business model, and quite frankly, that's fair enough. They'd put a lot of energy into embezzling money into secret bolt holes around the world. Why shouldn't they enjoy the fruits of other people's labour? They were happy to play second fiddle to a thug in charge as long as he kept the gravy train going. But once that train was derailed, which just about coincided with Russian ammunition trains being derailed by partisans in Belarus and Belgrade, Putin was vulnerable. However, either through fear or incompetence,
He was? Huh? He was vulnerable? Are we talking about the oligarchs that have been falling out of hotel rooms like the music video for It's Raining Men? Are we talking about those oligarchs? Putin's not vulnerable. What the fuck?
The oligarchs missed their chance. Those that wanted to get out of Russia did, and fast. Those that remained were soon sanctioned, and even if sanctions are a medium to long-term game in economic terms, they can have an immediate effect on Mrs. Novichokski's plans for Wimbledon. The oligarchs stuck in Russia might still have the gold, the cryptocurrency, and the cash in the Caymans, but they either can't get it or can't use it.
Marx, are you really going to sit here and say that, oh, I wouldn't support, I wouldn't support Russia's, illegal invasion into Ukraine if it wasn't for Western propaganda like what we're watching? Really? Really? Come on, man. The reason why people criticize you is because you fucking do apologetics. Look, it's fair to say, though, how do you know Russia won't be equipped? That's a fair question. But then you shit all over yourself by saying, Bakhmut victory. You call that a victory? Would you call Hamburger Hill a victory?
They are trapped in the not-so-gilded cage of Russia, and as a result have lost a lot of the leverage they once had over Putin. He, meanwhile, has been no slouch in communicating exactly what he expects of them. Sure, they're allowed to vaunt their position of being close to the sun, but don't overdo it, lads, or like Yevgeny Prigozhin, you'll soon be doing your own Icarus impression when the beeswax holding together the wings of your private jet.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, Marx, but if you're trying to insinuate that that's where I'm deriving my opinion from singular sources, then you're just not watching the fucking news underground. You know how the variety of news that I show on this channel? You don't know what you're gonna get on this channel. We'll watch fucking Nick Fuentes, then Rachel Maddow. So don't give me that shit.
It melts. So, no palace coup from the old guard anytime soon. Ditto the military, who can be bought off with the occasional pay rise. And don't expect an outbreak of revolutionary zeal from the docile and aging society that can be palmed off with tales of Uncle Joe and the occasional hike in social security. But what of the young bucks?
Yeah,
Putin
exactly,
has to keep
Davey.
one eye, and preferably a heavy lid, on the younger generation, the adaptable, optimistic, adventurous and entrepreneurial digital natives that are truly Generation Z. Generally well educated, many with MBAs from prestigious Western institutions, these guys are financially and socially ambitious. Much of what should have been the up-and-coming entrepreneurial class of modern Russia have looked at the deal Putin is offering and seen it as so last century. They're not interested in having to pay the bribes. Sorry.
Who write this? Okay, I can't do it. I'm done. I can't do it. I don't know. You want to watch this yourself? It's so last century. Yeah, this is horrific. This is... Give me an hour and a half of Vlad Vexler talking quietly into the mic any day. I can't do it. I can't do it. There you go. You want to watch it yourself? It's right there. Thank you. Thank you so much, Telegraph. Oh. So last century. Who wrote that? Who wrote that? Oh, it's so last century. Holy shit. I could feel the moss, the fungus growing in my brain. Antiquated. All right, folks, moving on to our final segment, the funnest segment, everyone's favorite segment, Gaza. I wanted to start off light and, play a light video to kind of get people worked in to the situation. So, kick back, grab some popcorn. This is going to be an easy one to watch. Okay. Oh, wait, no. Flip that, reverse it.
قاعدين احنا عادي بدهم يجهزوا فطور نفطر هنا، وناس راحت تخبز وناس قاعدين في البنات قاعدات كان بامان الله. ما ادري انا انقسم دب ثلاث ضرب وهنا وضرب هنا وضرب هنا. هو اللي جيت خشيت على الغرفه الحق اشوف لك البنات، لقيت البنات الثنتين، واحد استشهدت راسه رايح والبنت الثاني مصاب في رجله الله يستر.
You're an American citizen. You paid for this.
الطفل برضه في قضيه في رجلها، وفي بنت على الباب تلعب.
Taxpayer dollars at work.
على الباب برضه في قضيه اجت في رجلها، يعني بس البنات اللي بقوا قاعدين، اطفال بنات، لا في اسلام ولا شباب. واللي صار هاي شايف هاي الوضع، يعني البنت ايش بتعمل؟ قاعده بتسلوا بيلعبوا مع بعض، وقبلها بفتره برضه اخوها استشهد كمان، برضه استهدف اخوها الصغير كمان طفل عند الدار، وهم طالعين من الدار شادين من دورنا، قصفوا الدار واستشهدت اخوها وعمتها الكبيره.
وين كنت لما صار القصف يا عمو؟
كنت وين؟ إلا صارت 3 دبات، فقلت أمه صارت الخبز، وتبت معها حبيت الحية، والله تبت معها حبيت الحية.
حرام يا عم، قول لهم حرام، وين بدنا نروح؟ وين بدنا نيجي؟ قول لهم حرام، صار الموت عندنا هين، صار الموت عندنا هين، وين بدنا نروح؟ الملاجئ قصفتوها، وادي غزة اللي بيطلع وادي غزة اللي بيقصفوه في الشوارع. أنا شايفة صارت زي كنت أنا كل بموت على بجنة. امتى صارت الملاجئ تنقصف يا عم؟ والله حرام اللي بيصير. بتطلع وادي غزه بقصفوك، نمسك الكتيل بنروح نقصفوا لغات. وين الامم المتحده هذا الموضوع؟ عمر الملاجئ بكل الحروب انقصفت. حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. بس هناك اللي صار فيهم استشهد وصار. حسبي الله عليك يا حكام العرب، حسبي الله عليك يا حكام العرب.
Your response to a video of a child explaining that he carried a decapitated body is good thing it's not a real refugee camp. You look at this video and that's your reaction? That's your reaction, huh? You see this and you go, yeah, well, shouldn't have been in the vicinity of Hamas. That's what you got to say? Real disgusting. Real fucking disgusting. Hamas is disgusting. Hamas is a terrible organization. Last time I checked, 2 wrongs don't make a right. There's no justification. There's no justification when the United States did it. Does anyone remember double taps? You know, that's why Julian Assange, I believe, Julian Assange released that proof, or was it Edward Snowden, whichever one. But you remember double taps, where the United States would strike a location, a civilian location, and then 5 minutes later would strike the same location once the aid workers and ambulances had shown up? Did that work? Did that destroy the Taliban? Did that destroy ISIL and ISIS? Did it work? Did we get them? I will not have defense of Hamas in the chat. You have one opportunity to call Hamas what it is, a terrorist organization. Hamas is representing the Palestinians horrifically, doing a terrible job. Hamas is using the Palestinian civilians for its own power and its own machinations. In 2018, the people of the Gaza Strip protested against Hamas and their refusal to hold elections, and they were shot. Protesters were shot by Hamas. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Hamas is not the Palestinian army. Hamas is not. What are you talking about, Palestinian? Are you including the West Bank? The Palestinian Authority, the PLO? Are you including that into your little tirade? You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Hamas is not the army of the Palestinians. The Palestinians barely exist. You think there's any communication happening between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip? Like there's any coordination? The PLO fucking hate Hamas. Palestinian Authority hates Hamas. The Palestinian army? Jesus fucking Christ. The left is embarrassing. Go back to Hassan's stream, dude. Hop on back to Hassan's stream where that bullshit flies. The Palestinian army. Palestine barely exists as an idea anymore because of the violence of Israel. It certainly doesn't have a unified army. You call flip-flops and a fucking AK-47 a fucking military? God, the left is embarrassing. The left is so embarrassing on this and Ukraine. We got Code Pink now all of a sudden standing up for the Palestinians after doing month after month after month of apologetics for Russia. Oh, Code Pink cares so much about the Palestinians, guys. That's why they were rushing to Russia's defense in their invasion of Ukraine. This is the left. Amy Goodman quoting Scott Ritter. This is the left. Hassan on Twitch, making apologetics, making arguments like the one we just heard in the chat. God, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. On to our next video. Hear what the Kremlin said about the mob storming the airport in Russia. So this was, we were talking about this last stream as well. I thought I would show this just to get further information on this. We hear at the end of this clip here Putin's statement on the situation. Clearly it's anti-Semitism. It's clear, get the Jew, kill the Jew. And of course Russia is just saying, oh, not a big deal, basically.
The moment an angry mob charged onto the tarmac towards a plane from Tel Aviv looking for Israelis. Some of the passengers surrounded, forced to prove they aren't Jews. I'm Uzbek, but I don't know Uzbek language, this man assures. Do you want to fool us? Take his passport, a man answers. Rumors had swirled in the Muslim-majority Dagestan.
I don't know enough about both of those regions to answer your question, Katana.
Uzbek language, this man assures. Do you want to fool us? Take his passport, a man answers. Rumors had swirled in the Muslim-majority Dagestan region of Russia that this jet was carrying refugees from Israel, setting off the rampage.
Refugees from Israel?
There are no more passengers here, honestly, a ground staff member says as the crowd surrounds the aircraft. Everyone immediately go back onto the plane. The crew of a different aircraft orders its passengers as the protesters charge those disembarking. Hundreds.
Katana, I will say this, that Russia has a history of weaponizing its culture and its language, forcing other countries to assimilate, to basically turn them Russian, to literally, change their signage and change their school curriculums. So Russia has definitely done that in the past. That's for sure.
Also broke into the terminal building, some carrying Palestinian flags, leading to a total shutdown of the airport. The melee continued outside as well. Riders searching vehicles, also looking for Jews.
And they're waving the Palestinian flag doing this. You think this helps? You think this is helping? This is helping?
outside as well.
Bibi
Rioters
Netanyahu
searching
smiling ear
also
to ear.
looking for Jews.
Netanyahu loving
I have a sick kid. Here, we only have sick kids. Let us go. The man in this bus says. And this woman screams, we were traveling to bring our kids to get medical treatment.
Dude.
Let us go. What do you want from us? Russian security forces used choppers to bring in reinforcements, firing into the air to try and push the protesters back. Authorities say more than 20 were injured and more than 60 detained, the crowd throwing rocks at riot police even after they were driven out of the airport. Russian President Vladimir Putin held a meeting with his security staff, but the Kremlin blames, quote, external interference for inciting the crowd. While it's not clear whether any Israelis were harmed, condemnation from Israel's president in an interview with German publication Bild.
It was like a pogrom. Thank God it was prevented at the end by the authorities, but it looked like pogrom.
It was like a pogrom? This random angry mob showing up to fuck shit up, not even knowing what they're doing, was a pogrom? Look up the definition of what a pogrom is. It's a pogrom. I mean, honestly, Israel's knee-jerk reaction to use the most hyperbolic language, that amplifies their victimhood narrative every single chance they get, is actually hurting their victimhood narrative. A pogrom? This random mob of angry fucking people? A pogrom. Right.
It was like a pogrom.
Right.
Thank God it was prevented at the end by the authorities, but it looked like pogrom, and it was live, and everybody was worried about it.
Right. There we go.
So, Jake, there's some pretty clear words there coming from the Israeli president. Obviously, some extremely troubling scenes that we saw there from Dagestan.
No, Zio Duke, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, dude, and we're gonna have to do it. An organized massacre of a particular ethnic group. Okay, all right, well, shit. Yeah, no, I guess that kind of was what the fuck was going on there. Violent riot. Fuck, yeah, that is exactly. Actually, I'm totally wrong. I have the wrong idea of what a pogrom is. I totally take it back. A violent riot incited with the aim of massacring or expelling an ethnic or religious group. That's exactly what we saw. It was anti-Semitism on display. Fuck me running. Yep, no, that's the right. Okay, I take it back. I take my criticism back. That's the right word. That's the right term.
The Israeli government as a whole also condemned what happened there in Dagestan, and also demanded that Russia do everything to keep
Can't be right every time. That's why I look it up.
Jews in general in Russia as well safe. The United States State Department, of course, tonight doing exactly the same.
I was thinking a pogrom was like, a meticulously planned action, a meticulously planned action that would affect politics or be, I guess I had it in my head that a pogrom was something more of like, like a plan, I guess. But no, I guess a pogrom just stands for a riot, basically a group of people that are wanting to ethnically cleanse another group. Okay.
Same thing, Jake.
That's a program. Okay. Okay. All right, folks. Well, we're doing great here. I'm really showing my professionalism 100%. All right, so moving on to the next clip here. Let's see how I embarrass myself with this one. But just another update from Channel 4 News. They've been doing a daily update of the Gaza situation. Great, really great reporting, person on the ground reporting. So, and yes, I'm aware Channel 4 News is corporate UK right-leaning news. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of acknowledgement of the Gazan civilians in a stark contrast to how this is usually reported on by the mainstream media.
While the bombing of Gaza continues without the pause requested by governments around the world, politics has spilled onto the streets. What a terrible name! But in this war, it is not so much the Arab street that is up in arms at Israel, but the street in Europe and the US, where there are ever louder demands to stop bombing Palestinian civilians. There have been demonstrations in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv as well, combining demands for more action to free the 242 hostages in Gaza with demands on the embattled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to step down. And America's senior diplomat has been meeting Arab foreign ministers in Jordan to try and stop Israel's growing isolation in the region. Well, Israel's military says it is continuing to push forward with its offensive against Hamas, which the UK has designated as a terrorist organization. It claims it has now completely encircled Gaza City and the north of the enclave. Simeon Brown has all the latest.
At the Al-Fakura school, the classes have paused, but the lessons of war continue. Today, this child learns how to lift a decapitated body. This young boy says he was stood here when 3 bombs landed, and he helped to move those who did not survive.
Davey, I'm troubled by your comment. I'm troubled by your comment. I'll just say that.
No child should have to carry the dead, yet alone live expecting to join them.
Are you like rubbing it in this guy's face?
Since the conflict, this UN-run school in Jabalia has been a shelter for the displaced, but it has not been able to keep anyone safe from Israel's bombardment. This man is asking, when has it been normal to bomb refugee camps? Where is the United Nations? This is unfair, he says. This is the aftermath. Earlier this week, the US asked Israel to explain a strike on the Jabalia refugee camp that the UN said could be a war crime. The disputed death toll is between dozens and hundreds. In northern Gaza, the Israeli offensive has increased. There has been another strike outside the Al-Quds hospital. It is now home to 14,000 people. This picture is from the Palestinian Red Crescent. The Israeli Defense Force is yet to confirm, but they are on the ground in northern Gaza, as seen in their videos. Those displaced from this part of Gaza had been told.
So, yeah, river to the sea, all that. So I do agree that that term existed before Hamas existed, and that Hamas has taken that term and, you know, twisted its meaning. I would like to see a Palestine that exists connecting the West Bank to the Gaza Strip. I would like to see the West Bank settlements returned and the Gaza Strip settlements returned as well. Not all of them, obviously. That's untenable. That's impossible. But the reason why I timed it out was because there are a lot of bad actors that are using that term unironically to call for the end of Israel. And look, as much as I dislike the right-wing government of Israel, I believe in the two-state solution. I don't think the solution is to eradicate one side or the other side. I think Jerusalem should be shared. You know, so yeah, the reason why I timed that phrase out, because I'm not comfortable with people using that phrase to call for the eradication of Israelis. And I'm not saying everyone who's using that phrase is calling for the eradication, but there are enough bad actors who are using that phrase to call for the eradication of Israel that I feel like I should be responsible. If someone comes in the chat and says, kill all the Palestinians, they're going to get banned or timed out. If someone comes in the chat and makes allusions that all Israelis should be killed, they're going to be banned and timed out. So there's your detailed answer to why I did that.
Told to move south, and the main road would be safe to use for 3 hours today.
Yes, Grimes, I do realize that.
But among displaced Palestinians, there was little trust Israel would keep its word.
Yeah, no, if we were 100% only dependent on what Israel wants to do, then yes, we'd be totally screwed. It's a good thing that the United States has massive leverage over Israel and actually does have the ability to force Israel to come to the bargaining table by leveraging its massive amount of aid, military and otherwise, to force Israel to come to the bargaining table to come up with a solution. But yes, I totally acknowledge the current goal of the Israeli government is to completely destroy Palestine, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, to completely assimilate it and kick, if we're lucky, kick all the Muslims into Jordan or Egypt. If we're unlucky, just kill them all. You know, depending on what insane Israeli government that we're going to get. You know, how more right-wing can you get than Ben Gvir? Is there any more further to the right than Ben Gvir?
If there is hope for a diplomatic solution, US Secretary Antony Blinken is in Jordan, where there is an absence of consensus with these Arab leaders.
We are still asking for an immediate ceasefire and for Israel to stop hindering the delivery of humanitarian aid.
I disagree with Davey. You know, I mean, that it's going to be, I think if Israel is left to its own devices and is allowed to continue its program, Davey would be correct. But I think there's a lot of fight left in the Palestinians. And it's going to be a much more monumental effort by Israel to complete this project of total eradication of the Palestinian state. Davey is making it sound like it's going to happen in a couple months. Davey is being naive on that. He's been naive from the very beginning. Davey still believes that Hamas can be destroyed militarily. You know, I guess the United States spending $4 trillion in Afghanistan and doing nothing against the Taliban isn't enough evidence that one can't destroy terrorism with a gun. You know how you destroy terrorism? A happy and healthy middle class. You destroy terrorism with politics, not guns. Davey doesn't understand that.
Aid. We are also demanding an international investigation into this violation of international law.
It's our view that a ceasefire now would simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just a few days ago,
Zio Duke, yeah,
a senior Hamas official said that it was their intent to do October 7th again and again and again.
So where next for this conflict? Israel currently rejects a ceasefire whilst Hamas remain in Gaza with Israeli hostages. Yet the US now supports a brief humanitarian pause and is preparing the ground for when the fighting ends. Yet nobody can see just how or when that will be.
Simeon Brown reporting. Well, our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum, is with me now again. It's good to see you again, Lindsay. Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, has been a very busy man. He's back in Jordan today meeting all these Arab foreign ministers, as we just said. What's he trying to achieve, and what will he achieve?
Well, his version of events is slightly different from their version of events, I would say. What he said earlier today was that the Arab leaders agreed with the Americans that Hamas may not, must not rule Gaza again in the future. But we haven't heard them say that. And in fact, the Jordanian foreign minister was railing against the Israelis in very strong language for what he called war crimes and saying that this must stop and there must be a ceasefire immediately. And of course, the Americans don't want a ceasefire immediately.
And the
they
apartheid
say that there should be
needs
humanitarian
to end.
pauses, 3 to 12 hours
but
to allow aid.
But they haven't got those yet, have they?
They haven't had anything like that. And then at the same time, you've got another complication in Gaza, which is Hamas apparently, according to the Egyptians and the Americans, stopping both the wounded and foreigners from leaving because they were apparently trying to get wounded Hamas fighters out. And that wasn't supposedly part of the plan. So you have that disagreement there.
So we're going to talk about the demonstrations in Europe and the US later in the program. There have been very few demonstrations on Arab streets as we would have expected in the past. I mean, there have been a few. What's going on there?
Well, there have been some. I mean, there was one in Jordan yesterday, and
but
not in the Arab.
Small compared to what they used to have.
Yeah, relatively small. But also the countries where you would have expected those demonstrations, Syria, Iraq, and so on, are not the countries that have power in the Middle East anymore. The countries countries with power are the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and nobody demonstrates on the streets there because you're not allowed to.
And also it's about money there, isn't it? And investment in Israel and all these other things.
Absolutely, and also people there are not
allies
politically
of the United
engaged
States,
in the
by
same
the
way. In the Gulf, they've never been as politically engaged as they are in the Levant. But it's those countries in the Gulf, particularly the UAE, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which will be the ones who decide what will happen in Gaza afterwards. They are the ones with the money, they are the ones with the political clout, and they are the ones which have some kind of relationship with Israel. So they are going to become ever more important.
Lindsay, thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now is national security expert and former Middle East advisor at the Pentagon, Jasmine Al-Gamal. Thank you so much for coming on the program, Jasmine.
Oh boy,
do you think
here we
that diplomacy,
go.
especially American diplomacy, is working at the moment, or is it failing?
Unfortunately, Secretary Blinken has very little to show at this moment in time for the shuttle diplomacy that he's been conducting over the last 4 weeks. As you mentioned, protests around the world are getting louder and more urgent, calling for a ceasefire, for a humanitarian pause to let humanitarian assistance in. Secretary Blinken and President Biden's own party members are now asking urgently for a humanitarian pause. You have around 60 members, Democratic members of Congress, both congressmen and women and senators, who have written to Secretary Blinken to ask him to push harder for a humanitarian pause.
You might as well jerked off a fucking unicorn on the goddamn planet Mars.
And Secretary Blinken himself has said that he's been having these conversations with the Israelis.
Write a letter, guys.
Unfortunately, to no avail at this point.
Why do you think that is? I mean, it always puzzles me why the Americans, who spend so much money and send so many weapons to Israel, don't have more clout in these very perilous times.
You know, I mean, that's a great point. It's a great question. I mean, one of the sort of primary reasons that the U.S. administration, successive U.S. administrations have stated that the reason they are so publicly supportive of Israel, they call it this bear hug diplomacy, unequivocal, unwavering support for Israel in public, is precisely because they think that that should give them more leverage behind the scenes to push for things like a humanitarian pause that is so needed right now. And you see that that's not happening. I think it tells you something about what the Israeli government and what Israeli officials are feeling right now in terms of pressure to come up with some sort of result that Prime Minister Netanyahu can hold up to his people and say, look, I know I messed up on October 7th. I know I was to blame. I know you're angry, but look, here's what we've done. And I think that that is what's driving them to ignore American requests at the moment and up until now.
I mean,
humanitarian
pause. The question that we keep coming back to, like a tongue to...
I really wasn't expecting a brand new Orwellian term, but here we are. Humanitarian pause, i.e., you can keep bombing the shit out of citizen, whatever, just go nuts, kill everybody. But, think about a ceasefire sometime, maybe, stop for a second, maybe. But, I mean, you can keep going, but, take a break if you want. Take a break. Take a pause.
To an aching tooth is what on earth happens with Gaza after this is all over, the day after. And frankly, I've not heard a single viable idea from anyone here in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or London or Washington about what might happen. Do you have any clue?
So this is the topic, obviously, of discussions around policy circles. I've written about this in the last week, trying to think about, okay, what happens the day after? Now, obviously, what everybody agrees on right now, what everybody's trying to tell the Israelis right now is a military solution does not exist to this conflict. You have tried it time and time again.
You hear that,
Davey? You go in with all of your military might and you leave, and this happens over and over again because you are not addressing the root cause of the problem, which is the fact that Palestinians are not allowed to have their own state, to live side by side in dignity and peace with the Israelis. And unless you get to
and this is the moment where I need to remind everybody that officially Israel has never, throughout history of its existence, has never acknowledged the existence of the Palestinian state. The only thing that they've acknowledged the existence of is the PLO as a negotiating body. Israel does not accept the existence of Palestine and never has since its inception.
Point, unless you get to the point where people are able to live in their own sovereign state, unfortunately, we are going to keep seeing this kind of violence again and again.
Right. And yet, Antony Blinken yesterday disinterred the two-state solution, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, here's something from earlier, from a distant era. I mean, is that even a workable proposition these days?
I mean, to be honest, it becomes less workable by the day. I mean, when you have, you know, the number of civilian casualties in Gaza right now, the number of
they're not leaving northern Gaza. So now that's split in half while they're increasing settlements in the West Bank, basically deputizing settlers, giving them weapons and not convicting them of their crimes. There's not enough left to be a country. And Israel knows this. Israel fucking knows this. They've known this for decades. It's been part of the plan. Slowly, slowly, slowly chip away and take over. And then if they give you opportunities like October 7th, if they give you opportunities, take them and take more and more. You know, I know it's conspiratorial, but it is very, very interesting that Netanyahu was interested in working with Hamas, but not interested in working with the PLO. It is very interesting. We need an in-depth analysis of Bibi Netanyahu's relationship with Hamas. How did he encourage that organization? Did he choose to empower a terrorist organization that he knows would offer an extremely powerful propaganda tool for this project of destroying the Palestinians? You know, is there any proof to that? We need to find out.
Settlers that are sort of agitating and conducting violent attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank.
You're wrong. I mean,
the more this goes on, the less viable a two-state solution is, because what's left? What's left for a Palestinian state? Where are the Palestinians that are going to be living in that state if over 9,000 of them have been killed in a month? Yeah. So these are the kinds of questions and these are the kinds of conversations that Secretary Blinken, President Biden should be having with the Israelis, is to say, what you're doing right now is ruining prospects for peace, and this hurts you in the long term.
Right. Okay, Jasmine Al-Gamal, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the program. Now, the families of some of the 241 people still being held hostage in Gaza have been protesting in Tel Aviv and here in Jerusalem outside the Supreme Court, demanding more action to bring their relatives home. I've met with a number of families throughout this crisis, including Jonathan Zeigen, son of peace activist Vivian Silva, who spoke to us just a few days after the Hamas attacks. 4 weeks later, I sat down with him again. Vivian Silva is one of Israel's most prominent peace campaigners.
I'm sitting in my backyard. My home is 3 minutes from the Gaza Strip.
100%.
That proximity was indicative of her politics, but also proved fateful on October the 7th, when she was believed to have been taken hostage by Hamas. Waiting for news, any news, in his flat in Tel Aviv is her son Jonathan.
So I was interrupting this. This is very important. But this prominent peace activist being kidnapped by Hamas. I mean, it's just you know what I mean? I mean, like Netanyahu over here, just smiling ear to ear, man. Hamas is the gift that just keeps on giving.
Indicative of her politics, but also proved fateful on October the 7th, when she was believed to have been taken hostage by Hamas. Waiting for news, any news, in his flat in Tel Aviv is her son Jonathan.
I believe that if she would have been rescued on the 7th, she would have been very vocal about stopping the war and push for diplomacy.
Don't kill her, Hamas. Don't kill her, man.
Slaughtered that day.
Yeah, because
put her in front of a camera.
Force only brings more death. And, you know, dead babies in Gaza won't heal our dead babies. The only way to move forward is with peace.
And the notions we had up until now, that's the proof that they were false.
Okay, look, this guy is going through it. I'm not trying to shit on him. I'm not trying to push back on this, but the left does need to talk about Hamas. The left does need to talk about how untenable Hamas is. There is no negotiating peace with Hamas. You could do a temporary peace, but there needs to be some kind of something. They're not there. They have the Gaza Strip, you know, on an iron grip. The Gazans, the Gazan Palestinians, they don't have any control over these madmen. What is the left's argument for what to do with Hamas? So say Israel does do a ceasefire and pulls out of northern Gaza. What do we do about Hamas? Right? Do we do some kind of charm offensive where, you know, I mean, it's an extremely like the easiest solution is, well, push them all out of there and just let Israel take them over. The harder solution is to find a solution that somehow leads to the end of this terrorist organization. I don't know, man. I really don't know.
We had up until now, that's the proof that they were false.
If and when your mother comes back, when she's free again, there will be Israelis who say to her,
I hope you're wrong, T-Rex.
All your work, all your good intentions were wasted. What would you say on her behalf in response?
I would say they weren't wasted, they were disregarded. She had the right idea. The fact that we're here is because not enough people listened. From both sides.
You're really funny, Zio.
You know, I see
I'm laughing on the
brutal
inside.
Attack on the 7th and the ability to use such viciousness in a context of so many years.
You're okay, Zio. I'm just
dehumanizing each other. We as a society are able to keep on the occupation. We're able to bomb Gaza
I hate this.
like ants. And the other side is able to, you know, Hamas was able to burn people alive, to kill babies, defile bodies.
Yeah. Yes.
So, you know, that's the escalation of dehumanizing, when you accept the concept that it's acceptable in the world that another human being isn't worth his own life. So it becomes a reality.
So in that hierarchy of evil doing, where does one belong in the other?
I think good and evil in this case isn't between two sides. It's between two powers. The power of life and the power of death. And both powers exist in both sides. So when progress...
Look, like I said, this guy's going through it. I don't mean to shit on him, but the left, you know, he has an excuse. He can say whatever, how he's feeling. The left needs to have a better argument than this is life versus death. Okay, like I said, this guy's heart's in the right place, and man, he's going through it. I couldn't imagine. I'm not trying to criticize him, but we need better. We need to have a better argument. This is life versus death or whatever. We got to have something better than that.
People, they have it wrong. You know, you have to condemn Hamas's actions on the 7th, and it doesn't mean you're not an ally to the Palestinian people.
Thanks very much.
Interesting.
Jonathan Seigen speaking to me earlier. That's all from Jerusalem for tonight. Back to Aisha in London. Aisha.
Thanks, Matt. Now, tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters have taken to the streets in London and other cities around the UK for the 4th week in a row. Oxford Circus was brought to a standstill as part of the crowd staged a sit-in. Earlier, the UK's chief rabbi warned against the rise of hateful extremism and claimed the line was in danger of becoming blurred between demonstrators and those who support the brutal terrorism of Hamas. Amelia Jen reports.
Converging on London's Trafalgar Square for the 4th week.
There is a legitimate discussion happening in the UK now about banning all protests supporting Palestinians or Palestinian rights, Gaza citizens. Doesn't matter how hard that protest movement says we do not support Hamas. This is about the innocent civilians in Palestine. That doesn't matter. Literally, if you're chanting Palestine in the streets, it's illegal. That's what they're trying to do. We're having discussions about making it illegal to boycott Israel, and now we're having legitimate discussions about banning protest for specific countries. Speechless. I'm shocked. I'm shocked to my very core.
Weekend in a row, but for the first since the Home Secretary labelled these protests hate marches. From Paris to Sydney to Buenos Aires, thousands gathered to protest Israel's bombing of Gaza in retaliation to Hamas's October attack.
Miles, you seem like a nice guy. Please just make it clear that you do not support Hamas so that I can move on with my life. Thank you, Miles.
Ceasefire now! In Harrow, a few hundred walked to their Labour MP's office to call for him to support a full ceasefire instead of a humanitarian pause to let aid in.
They're not hate marches, they're peaceful marches. We're asking to stop bombing somewhere. How can that possibly be hate? We're not inciting any hate. We're asking that somewhere be stopped bombing so that children can live.
Oh, Miles Bird!
Completely divisive
hot
rhetoric.
take.
It's wrong. I mean, look at the crowd. There are plenty of children here. I'm here with my child. It's a peaceful protest. Absolutely not hate marches at all.
This is a conflict felt very deeply. The language around it so often disputed and divisive.
I think now more than ever, the precision of language is absolutely crucial. And although there has been plenty of hate expressed on these marches, I think the characterization as a hate march, that blanket term, was not one that Jewish News has been using. From the river to the sea specifically, I know
and honestly, it makes, because Germany is able to do this because of its history with, Nazism and the swastika and Mein Kampf, and I've made arguments in the past of fascism does not deserve free speech. But here we see it in Germany, that slippery slope. Well, we made it illegal to stop, to not speak freely about fascism and Nazism. Well, these same laws we could use, the support for the Palestinians is basically supporting Nazis. So there you go, same thing. So there's that slippery slope happening to us in real time. So, if we're going to say Nazis don't deserve free speech, fascists don't deserve free speech, we better be fucking real clear about what we're talking about and what we're banning. That law needs to be hyper specific. Oh, well, that means that they'll just work around it. Okay, well, that's the bridge we're going to have to, get to when we get there. But look what happens when opaque free speech laws are made to protect us from fascism and then are used to go after political opponents or countries, or disagreements. It is a slippery slope, and we got to be careful about that.
There are people who would question whether that actually means the eradication of Israel. But if you think about it, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, if that is Palestine, then there is no room for the existence of Israel on 1 inch of that land.
Today, the chief rabbi said that while a majority were protesting to support innocent civilians in Gaza, a minority supported Hamas, and that the lines were getting blurred. He said it should be clear that what Hamas meant by resistance jihad or intifada was hateful extremism, but that instead more and more were openly calling for them here and around the world.
Our principles are very, very clear. We've been very, very clear. We call for full support for international law, which makes clear that the targeting and killing of civilians, that the taking of hostages and the imposition of collective punishment on entire populations are illegal.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister called plans to protest on Remembrance Sunday disrespectful, saying it could risk the desecration of the cenotaph. Organisers say they'd never planned to protest in the same location or even at the same time. Tonight, as we go to air, protesters staged a sit-in at a station near Trafalgar Square.
Great point strategy.
With nearly 1,800 officers and reserve deployed in London alone, this is the most police demonstration yet. The rhetoric getting more impassioned each day. The conflict continues.
Yeah, we're not Hassan's chat. This isn't Hassan's chat. I've made my point about this stupid river to the sea saying. I acknowledge that it existed before Hamas existed. I acknowledge that they've co-opted it and turned it into a genocidal slogan. Find a different way to support Palestine. Okay? Find a different way to support Palestine. All right, the last little clip we have, appropriately for the shills who want to point out that I'm pro-Hamas. I wanted to show this because it's the how slick it is. Who's Hamas over here with the editing skill of Mr. Beast? What the fuck is this? I'm shocked. So this is Hamas propaganda. A few details I want you to look at though. The condition of the rocket launchers and the armaments. You'll see there's a lot of flaked paint. These are obviously very old. Davey was pointing out that we didn't get to see any of the aftermath. A lot of these rockets hit, but then we don't actually see how much damage was actually done. You know, we don't see if the tanks are crippled or anything like that. I just wanted to show this, just to show you some footage. We got some frontline footage of the urban war happening in Gaza. Grain of salt, full acknowledgement. This is Hamas propaganda. I don't support Hamas, but it needs to be said again and again and again because it just never ends. But watch this. This is like super crazy how well edited it is. It's really weird. And no, there isn't any decapitations or dead bodies. That's interesting, Miles. Who's their editor? So yeah, I wanted to show that. So I mean, look at the condition of these armaments here. You know, I mean, these have clearly been sitting around for a little while. Wow, look at that. Look at that right there. Look at is that rust? Look at the amount of rust right here. Oh, that's a makeshift handle. Look at that. That's been applied after the fact. That's just like, wow, dude. Yeah, this shit's in gnarly condition. Thank you for following Encia. Yeah, I'm no expert either. These are just observations. Jesus. Still works though. Obviously still works. They love the reverb. They do. Yeah. Davey was nice enough to post this in the Discord. Go ahead and join the Discord if you want to contribute to the stream. Thank you, Davey. So I wanted to point out, you know, we saw Russia making this mistake, and we still see Russia making this mistake. Clearly, there's someone in here driving the tank, but also moving the machine gun turret, but no infantry support. And we see why this is a problem. Look how close. Look how close the Hamas is able to get to the Israeli tank here. And no, they're totally blind. They have no idea these two guys are standing here aiming a rocket at them. You know, he's looking over here, right? I don't know where the pilot's looking, but no tanks. Okay, so there's nothing. Maybe there's another tank further behind, but where's the infantry support? Where are the soldiers? This is not smart. This is not how you protect your equipment and your soldiers. The guys in here could be dead. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you again, Chem Goblin. Just every technique. No, I'm not saying that, Miles. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that it's a pretty it's a massive mistake that can cost lives and equipment. I'm not saying that they're in shambles. I haven't seen a full assessment yet, but this is definitely troubling. You're not going to be destroying Hamas, sending naked tanks into an urban fucking battlefield. I'm not a military expert, and I don't think I need to be one to point that out. Yeah, maybe strategy. I mean, you would think Hamas would be like the primary training, you know, like how to fight in an urban conflict would be, you know, the number one thing drilled into them. Yeah, so there you go. Once again, this was Hamas propaganda. I don't agree with it, but I wanted to show it because there's not a lot of, sorry, too loud. But I wanted to show it because there's not a lot of, we're not getting a lot of footage. Unlike Ukraine, which is, you know, and I explained this as to why this is happening. But the reason why we got so much footage out of Ukraine was that there was a net positive propaganda value to the Ukrainian military putting out raw footage, and there still is. It's still beneficial to the Ukrainian, you know, propaganda, you know, narrative to be putting that out. And I support Ukraine, by the way. But when it comes to Israel and you know, and Hamas, Israel, there's not, you know, Israel has less of a propaganda value. Oh, that's too quiet. Israel has less of a propaganda value putting out raw footage. It needs to be curated. And the same thing with Hamas, it looks like. It looks like Hamas thinks it's more valuable for it to, you know, send out curated videos. But we'll see. I mean, you know, check out your local Live Link or, you know, Daily Motion website and see what kind of horrific, mind-destroying videos Hamas puts out. That would be assuming they have expecting a fight from Hamas over a fight from their neighboring countries. I don't think the Israeli military is going in there completely naive. It's troubling to see a naked tank, but maybe that was like, you know, maybe they got lucky. Maybe the troops were on the way and they just, you know, Hamas got lucky. They just send lambs to slaughter, no different from any of those wars in the front, cry back. Those in the back, crack whips, cry forward. It is pretty sickening how that's how it always is, right? You have to go back to like the 18th and 17th century for, you know, for like commanders and stuff, you know, like real, you know, real higher ups actually getting affected by the frontline battle. I had a low opinion of Western governments before, but even I didn't think they'd boldly, facely deny a literal genocide happening. Well, Miles, what I'm actually surprised is how the United States is already showing like, no, we don't really want you to do this. We'd really prefer a ceasefire. We're not really down to support this for the next 5 years or longer. We're not really interested in supporting this project. Because the United States knows what's going on. The United States is not stupid. The CIA is not stupid. The military is not stupid. They have to know internally what Israel is up to. They have to know internally what Israel is doing. They have to. So that, to me, that's been the most refreshing, is the pushback we're seeing on mainstream media, even on Morning Joe, talking about Gazan civilians. Morning Joe talking about Palestinian civilians. Wolf Blitzer talking about Palestinian civilians. That's a big change. That's a big change from just a couple years ago. If you look at the last Gaza war, you know, look at the news coverage from the last Gaza war, there was barely any discussion about innocent Gazans. Oh, innocent, how is that possible? They're all terrorists. So that's the only piece of good news here, is that there doesn't seem to be much of a stomach for the total eradication of the Palestinian state. There doesn't seem to be a lot of stomach for that right now. Here's what I said, that the last video should be taken with a grain of salt. Israeli tanks are very equipped to handle those RPGs. This video shows it well. An Israeli tank takes a direct RPG and brushes it off. All right, let's take a look. We got some red meat here. Thank you, Davey. Yeah, Miles. Yeah. Future generations won't even bat an eye at this. Don't be so certain. Look at the effect World War II. Look how relevant World War II still is in everyday life, right? All the things that happened in World War II, and all of that, a lot of that is, not all of it, but some of that is still very relevant to our times. So why were you timed out? Yeah, I don't know. Do you support Hamas? Can you just clarify that, Ramsey? Can you just, you know, definitively say you do not support Hamas for me? Could you do that for me? Yeah, do you support Hamas? I do not support the right-wing Israeli government. It's really troubling when you answer a direct question with whataboutism. I'll give you one more opportunity. Do you support Hamas? You get one more chance, buddy. I don't know if I fully agree with the statement that Israel is a terrorist state either. I think it's more complicated than that. Thank you, Ramsey. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ramsey. I asked the question because it needs to be asked. I asked the question because it does need to be asked on the left. And that's a massive problem. That's a massive fucking problem. I did answer your question, jackass. Did you try listening? I said I do not support the right-wing Israeli government. That's what I said. You know, are we forgetting about the millions of Israelis that disagree with destroying Palestine? Are we just going to forget about them? Yeah, that's Ramsey. That kind of thinking is, you're not really welcome here, buddy. You're kind of a simpleton. All right, here we go. Yeah, so this is why I timed you out, buddy. That's not the Ramsey show. Thank you so much for your time and effort here, Ramsey, but just leave me alone. Okay, go find some other stream to bother. God, these lefties. God damn these lefties, man. I mean, Lenny, sometimes you can answer a question with a question, right? It's too simplistic to say, oh, well, they're both terrorist states. I don't agree with that either. It's too complicated. It's too complicated. There's no generalization that perfectly encapsulates the complexity of this situation. You know what I mean? There's no phrase or simple explanation that perfectly encapsulates this whole thing. This is not good versus evil. You know, it's just not. It's not. I wish it was. I wish, you know, because that's what's so fun about Ukraine is that, yeah, no, Russia's clearly in the wrong, Ukraine clearly in the right. One of the most morally clear, just wars I've seen in my lifetime. And now I got to deal with the Israeli-Palestine conflict, which is one of the most unjust conflicts in my lifetime. I am a democratic socialist. I am a democratic socialist, if that matters. that matters to anybody. What I am, I'm losing my mind. That's what I am. We got fascists taking over the goddamn United States. Yes, that's left. Yes. All right, everybody. Big props to literally everybody in the chat. You know, I like T-Rex. I think I agree with T-Rex. Big props, Garbage Fuel Award to T-Rex and literally everybody that's here. Strategy member, thank you for being here from the very beginning. Chem Goblin, thank you for being here for the very beginning. Milesberg, thank you. New viewer, Milesberg, thank you for being here. Lenny, your boy Lenny from South Boston, #1 financial contributor. Thank you, Lenny. Right. Right. Literally, his name is Resist Colonizers, and he's doing propaganda for Russia's colonization of Ukraine. Right. Oh man, the psyop. Oh man, he's really twisting me through the fucking loops. Big props to Zeo Duke. Big props to Davey. Thank you again, Davey, for those wonderful clips. Big props to Woke Patriot. Thank you, Woke Patriot, for being here. Big props to all you lurkers. Thank you, lurkers out there. I see you. Thank you, lurkers. Big props to you. Thank you. You don't want to chat. I get you. It's a mess. Thank you for watching. Big props to Dirty Crackhead. Big props to Dirty Crackhead in the Discord. Thank you for those clips of the Kerch Bridge being attacked again. Yeah, we're watching you, lurkers. It's not a colonization. They speak Russian there. And it's, yeah, exactly, Zeoduke. Exactly. It's not a colonization. Didn't you see the ceremony where Russia annexed the territory? It's the independent region of Luhansk, guys. Thank you, Woke Patriot. That is exactly what I need to do. I need to smoke 100 joints right now. I'm gonna go smoke 100 joints and then smoke 2 more. I'm gonna smoke 100 joints before I smoke 100 joints, and then I smoke 2 more. Just looking up the chat here for anybody else I should give props to. Encilla and Encia. Thank you, Encia, for stopping in. Thank you for being here. Grimes. Thank you, Grimes. Very interesting comments from Grimes. Yeah. Katana of Truth. Thank you, Katana of Truth, for stopping in. Marks and Recreation. Thank you for being here. I'm going to regret saying that, but thank you for being here, Marks and Recreation. And Endus, thank you, Endus, for being here as well. And once again, thank you again to all you lurkers in the chat. Thank you so much, all you lurkers. Bumping up that view count helps a lot. It does. It helps a lot. So, I mean, honestly, the most important thing you can do for the stream is just watch it. That view count is the most important number. It's all about that view count, baby. It's all about that view count. So thank you so much to the lurkers out there. It wasn't the bridge being tagged, missile cruiser and the Kerch docks. Okay, thank you, Davey, for that correction. Yeah, it wasn't the bridge, it was the docks. Seems intentional. It doesn't seem like it's a miss. It seems like they were intentionally hitting that target. But thank you, Davey. I will face my fear. I'll permit it to pass over me and through me. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. What the fuck is going on? There you go. It's the Illuminati octopus. That's when you know the stream is over. When you see Woke Patriot's Illuminati octopus. Cruiser was hit three times with storm shadows. Okay. Hey, Lenny. Thank you so much, Lenny. We can't let it destroy us. We can't let it defeat us. We can't let this oligarchy win. We can't let these empires win. This isn't inevitable. Mankind's enslavement is not inevitable. I refuse that fucking idea. That the end result of all of this is that most of mankind lives in chains while a small group of people get to live in absolute luxury. That is not my fate. That is not the fate of humanity. That's the hill I die on. That's the fucking hill I die on right there. Folks, it's a simple 3-step program to create political change. Step 1, inform yourself, which is what we did today. Step 2, join a progressive political organization in your area. Join a union, run for office, do something, put your name down. And step 3, you got to put in the work. Yes, ask yourself, what am I doing for the political movement? How am I contributing? How am I contributing? It is your responsibility. It is. You don't get to avoid it. We need you. We need you. Peace in that motherfucking Middle East, and glory to the Ukrainian democracy. We're going to see you again, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how I'm feeling. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Zio. My name is Abandoned Nihilism, aka The Harbinger. This has been the News Underground, the most substantive news program on Twitch. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. There's the Discord. Check out the Discord, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chem Goblin. Thank you, Chem Goblin. Thank you, everybody. See you next time on the News Underground, folks. Thanks again.